The protagonist's name is Layla. She was born into a family of fairy earls. Her childhood was relaxed. However, after her mother died of illness, and it was discovered that she had no gift whatsoever, circumstances took a completely different turn. The Earl Fairy family is an unusual family that gives birth to people with the gift of healing, which the girl did not possess. The father, in order not to lose the gift, found a second wife. The woman who became the stepmother of the main heroine had a low status at that in a small degree, but was predisposed to healing, and tried to master the great power by crossing the blood. The protagonist developed two half-brothers, older brothers. Dallaire also possessing the ability to heal, and Toby capable of magic. Then came Emma, the daughter of her father and stepmother. She was born with this gift. The main character has already become an unwanted child for the family, so her position is even lower than that of a servant. Her brothers and sister treated her like a doll. Her father and stepmother didn't care. Although magic exists in this world, only a few possess it. And siblings are the elite among them. The stepmother also passed away early, but the abuse from her father and brothers did not stop. The protagonist was given food, clothes she wore out for the former maids in size it did not come to her, and that was to tear well small pieces. The girl frankly lived her life at the bottom, but at the age of 12 suddenly there was a meeting. The protagonist saw an unknown man in a mask. He approached her and apologized. He said that as soon as he went out into the garden he lost sight of the entrance to the mansion. From the fact that this man called her up coming in such an unassuming guise a lady, she felt her heart beat very fast. The protagonist said that if he was a guest she would take him there. The man saw the wreath the girl had woven. He took it and put it on her head saying that she had forgotten about it. The protagonist trembled with happiness, because no one had treated her so affectionately for a long time. She even thought that she was a princess from a fairy tale. The man asked her what her name was. After that, the protagonist introduced herself and asked the man's name. His name was Aaron Stanley. The protagonist thought his name sounded amazing and praised his voice. She wondered if the man was a soldier. After all, he looked very sturdy and the protagonist thought he must be here because of his acquaintance with her father. The protagonist showed the man the entrance and asked if it would be all right if she took him here. Aaron thanked the girl and said she had helped him out. Layla thought she was the one to thank for this happy moment. However, she believed that such a thing should not be said. At this point, the man asked if she was afraid of him. Layla was surprised and said she wasn't afraid of him at all. Aaron smiled and said that he hoped they would meet again. The main character was surprised and said that she too wanted to meet him again. When the man left, the brothers came up behind the girl. One of them asked if she was the one who made the wreath. Dallaire said all she was allowed to do was pull weeds and obey them. He asked if she really dared to make wreaths. Dallaire ran up to her and beat it off the girl's head. Afterwards, he stomped on it. The protagonist covered the wreath with her and asked him to stop. The guys realized the girl was crying and said she was stupid. Toby left and said that this tattered wreath would suit her better. Everything was screaming that the main character shouldn't be happy. Since then, for about 2 years now, Mr. Aaron has been making occasional visits to the fairy house. In fact, he is in one of the rooms and talks to her father and Emma most likely for therapy. The protagonist cared a little about what they were talking about, but there were events going on that she was more interested in. Aaron walked outside and saw the main character. He asked if she was forced to do weeding again. The man offered to help the girl but she said that there was nothing wrong with it and he certainly shouldn't get dirty. She asked the bestie to tell her something. The girl said she would like to hear about his accomplishments. The protagonist was surprised at how kind Aaron is. Every time he comes here he takes the time to talk to her. Aaron asks the protagonist if she is not afraid to listen to his stories. Layla says she finds it interesting to hear about the military exploits he's done. Their state has hostile relations with its neighbors. From what the protagonist knew, Mr. Aaron had participated in battle every time it was required, and had performed well. The protagonist thought that, to be honest, it was really creepy to hear about the killings, but she liked his stories. Aaron said he was feared by enemies and allies alike. The protagonist was surprised and asked why. At that point he took off his mask and said it was because of the cursed stain. The protagonist was surprised and asked if it hurt. Aaron asked if she felt dislike or fear when she saw it. But Layla said she did not, because he was a kind man. The man answered her that she was the one who should be called a kind man. The protagonist thought that the guy was very polite and even more so to talk to her so much. It was the night of that day. The protagonist was walking down the corridor when she heard voices outside the door. Emma told her father that she didn't want to heal that man. The man asked his daughter again. He said that Mr. Aaron was visiting their home by order of the king himself. Hearing that name, the protagonist looked into the room. Emma told her father that the man in the ghastly mask. She doesn't want to heal such scary and creepy people. Healing is not an easy thing, though simple hand behavior can have a significant effect, but with Emma's gift, it will be difficult to heal Mr. Aaron's stain. The most effective way is to exchange bodily fluids. That is, spending the night together. The father told his daughter that the man had come by direct order of the king and if she refused the existence of their family might be threatened, but Emma still didn't want to be with someone so creepy. That's when the protagonist realized that Mr. Aaron was visiting their home for the healing that Emma could give him. And that he was being refused. The girl thought that his kind treatment of her was too different from Emma's situation. The girl thought it was out of pity. Or to make a good impression on Emma through her. It couldn't help but sadden the girl. If she had the gift that Emma had, she would have been able to heal Mr. Aaron's car. The protagonist thought that maybe then she would have received real kindness, not pity, ingratiation. At the same time, she realized. She loved Mr. Orin, despite the circumstances. The protagonist thought it would hurt. She would like to be together with him. She still wants to see this kind man. The protagonist remembered how before she died, her mum asked her to listen to her. Layla told her that she would listen to whatever she told her so she didn't have to die. The girl's mum said that Layla is a flower that blooms when she loves and is loved herself. She asked Layla to remember that well. She is a bud that is sure to bloom someday. The protagonist knew it was a memory from the past and didn't understand why it resurfaced now. Since that day Mr. Arman came to the girl again a week later. She wanted to do something for him, for he remains as kind as ever. She wanted to do something for him, for even though Emma rejects him, he comes to this house again and again. However, all she could do was pick a bouquet. The girl hoped that these flowers could also heal his heart a little. At that moment, she came back and went to the guy. But then she fell and hit her leg. When Aaron saw the blood he went into a frenzy. He started whispering quietly that he had to kill all the enemies. Then he began to strangle the protagonist. The girl knew that Mr. Aaron's true curse was in his heart. And the stain is only a visible manifestation of it. He was now under the power of the curse. Layla thought that he must be in great agony. She thought that if she had the power of healing she could save the Lord. She would have tried to break even such a curse. The girl felt sad that she couldn't heal him. Then she envied Emma for the first time. She has the ability to heal Aaron but she's not going to do it. Even though he's suffering so much. The protagonist wanted the power that could heal him too. The girl's tear fell on the guy's hand and he woke up. The protagonist asked if he was okay. The guy apologized, but the girl told him there was no need to apologize as she was fine and glad he was too. The guy put his head down and asked why she was so kind to him when he was trying to hurt her. The main character realized that his voice was shaking and he was about to cry. The guy said he was cursed and hated himself for it. Decided to distance himself from people so he wouldn't hurt anyone until the curse was lifted. Despite this, took advantage of her kindness. The guy said he'd rather not see her again. But Layla said she wasn't hurt, so she asked him not to say that. She said she would be lonely if she didn't see him again, so she asked him to come round. The guy said she was the one he didn't want to hurt. The protagonist thought he was talking about pity. Pity for her, despised by everyone in the house, is kindness. The protagonist thought again that this is why she doesn't like him. However, he can't greet her in the same way. Aaron said he was sorry. He did not appear in this house again. And the protagonist decided to keep this unrequited love in her heart for the rest of her life. 2 years have passed since then. And the protagonist is still keeping Mr. Aaron in her heart. At that moment Toby came to the girl and said that she still looks good in weeds. Lately he has been coming to her more often alone to banter with her. At this point the guy asked if she had thought about wanting to live a different life. He offered the girl to be his mistress. Toby said that he was going to marry the daughter of a respectable family, and she would give her right to the place of his mistress. The protagonist did not immediately realize what he meant, but immediately she realized. The guy threw her to the ground and said that it was a waste to treat such a glorious body only as a maid. He talked about having it. The protagonist asked him to stop. Toby replied that the girl had a glorious face. He said all he had to do was cast a charming spell on her and she would fall in love with him in no time. The protagonist realized she couldn't let that happen. Her heart belongs to Mr. Aaron. Toby was surprised. He realized that most likely the curse had been reflected. The protagonist was glad that it didn't work out. Her feelings for Mr. Aaron had not faded. At that moment, her brother and sister appeared. Emma told Toby that she had seen a bright magical light and it was around here somewhere. Dallaire asked what happened here. At that moment Toby started screaming that the main character was trying to seduce him. Dallaire grabbed the girl and asked if she was really harassing him. He asked if she couldn't use magic and decided to please him with her body. The main character tried to say something but Toby asked who said she would let him touch her breasts. Layla said that was a lie and asked why he was lying about it. Emma laughed and said there was nothing to do but humiliate herself in front of men. She said she could go into prostitution if she wanted. Dallaire said that would suit a sister who didn't have any powers. The protagonist knew she wasn't doing anything like that. But still she thought it was good that she hadn't lost her senses at the thought of Mr. Aaron. That was her only treasure. But she didn't realize what that light was. After a few more years. One day, her father told the girl that there was a marriage proposal. The partner was a marquis. He said it was strange, but of course she was the choice. The father told the girl that since they were earls, it made sense for them to get involved with the marquis. The protagonist had no freedom to refuse. Her father told her that he should be reimbursed for the favor he had done in bringing her up. Emma said she'd heard that the partner was still an ugly monster. She said he was a good match for Layla, a very ugly, creepy, heartless man. That's why they called him the Monster Marquis. Dallaire said who'd have thought there'd be a use for her? Toby said that at best the girl would serve him as a toy. The protagonist didn't care who the monster was. Forgetting Mr. Aaron and becoming a wife willy-nilly would be hard. Her father told the girl that the Marquis would come for her in a week. He also told the girl to be ready on her own and not to take anything. Toby said the girl had nothing to take. He said it was a good thing or the money would have been wasted. Her father told the girl that he hoped she would be of some use to her husband. Then Layla realized that her first love had come to an end. A week later, the Monster Marquis came to pick her up, the one she had been praying to meet for so long. Aaron told the girl that he had never stopped waiting for that day. The girl too had been waiting for the day when they would finally meet. Aaron told the girl that throughout her life, he would make her happy. Layla didn't care if it was pity or fawning over Emma, if only she could be there for Mr. Aaron. Emma said they did look good for their ugly looks. But Dallaire told her not to say that. Toby said what a pity the whole thing with the mask wouldn't seduce any woman. Aaron took the girl in his arms and said that this is where he takes her away from her family. It was like a dream. The protagonist thought that even if there was no love in their marriage, even if it was an apology for that time, she will be able to love Lord Arene forever. The protagonist and Mr. Aaron left Fairy's house and headed to his mansion. When they arrived, the protagonist was surprised at how huge it was. But Layla felt a wistful sadness. She thought that maybe it was the guy's heart that took her as a wife. When they entered the house, the maids greeted them. The protagonist thought it was marvelous. The mansion never ceased to amaze with its luxury. Aaron said that today her home was here, so she could be at ease. At that moment, the protagonist noticed a sword hanging on the wall. Aaron explained to her that it was a sword honored by the king. Layla thought that there was no way that a man like Mr. Aaron, who had been honored by the king, would choose her as his wife. She thought it was all out of pity. The girl thought that she should try her best not to be kicked out, at least in the near future. At that moment one of the maids introduced herself. Her name was Ada. She was the maid who would be looking after Layla today. Ada told the girl that she could contact her with any questions. She also said her full name was Ada Dudley. She said she would be happy to work with the girl. Aaron apologized for speaking so soon, but he asked if the maid could fix Layla's appearance. Afterwards they would have lunch. Ada said it would be done and motioned for the girl to pass. Layla said she could wash herself, but the maid told her that the master had ordered them to wash her clean, down to the memories of her past residence. The woman said she had heard that in the past she had not even been provided with enough food and washing, but that would not be the case here at Stanley's house. The maid said they would transform it so that the master would shudder. Layla dreamed of it. She dreamed of being so beautiful that she could stand next to Master Aaron. She didn't know if that dream would come true. Later, when the protagonist looked in the mirror, she couldn't tell if it was true. The maid told her that her master had a good eye after all. She told the girl that she was very beautiful. At that moment Layla said it was the first time she had ever been dressed like that and asked if she looked strange, but Ada said she would say over and over again that the girl was beautiful. The maid said Layla should be confident and smile. The maid said that a smile makes a person more beautiful than any makeup. After that she suggested to go to the master's room. When Aaron saw the protagonist he was surprised by her beauty. Layla noticed the guy's affectionate smiles. Well, about her looking beautiful he didn't talk about it. The protagonist realized that this was a marriage based on pity, but still she was a little sad. At this point, the main character was served a meal. The guy said he didn't know if it was to her taste. Such luxurious salads at home Layla had never eaten. She was always nibbling on vegetable scraps. There was fish, meat and soft bread on the table. The girl couldn't recall eating such delicious food. She was sure that Mr. Irwin also knew that she had never tasted such food, that's why he was giving her so much to eat. Layla was surprised, but remembered that now she didn't have to clean up with her. But she still couldn't relax. She also didn't understand why the guy wasn't saying anything. It made Layla nervous. At this point, Aaron started talking. He said he had a question about the ceremony. He said he was going to announce the marriage to the king and then hold it here at the mansion. He apologized for that and asked if the girl would wait for a while. Layla was surprised. She hadn't thought it would be such a perfect marriage, with a ceremony. She didn't know if she really could. At that moment, Aaron asked if something was wrong. But the protagonist said there was nothing wrong, she was just worried if she was right for such a thing. But the guy told her that she had nothing to worry about as she was officially his wife. He said that all the formalities had already been completed. The man explained that she could not return to the ferry house now. The guy asked if the girl didn't mind. For the protagonist, displeasure was out of the question. Certainly not about leaving home and living together with Mr. Aaron. The lad said that then in continuation of the conversation he would like to ask her to wait a bit. At that moment he ordered the maid to leave the room before morning. He gave his hand to the girl and asked her to go. After that he led her to his room. Layla didn't realize if it was right that she would be his wife. The guy told the girl that she was his wife now, but he wasn't going to touch her until the official ceremony was over. He said that he thought it would be better to start a relationship after the ceremony was over. Layla was surprised that even though she was the kind of person who could be treated any way she wanted, he was still so polite. And that made it even harder for her. The protagonist wanted a guy here and now. She likes Aaron, and even if that love isn't mutual, she wanted to be with him for as long as possible and be of use to him. At that moment, she said she had healing powers too. The girl said there was a day when Obi's brother molested her. And that's when she was able to ward off his spell. At that moment, the sailor was coming out of her. She also recalled the words of her dead mother, "You are a flower blooming when it loves and is loved." Layla said that she thought the ability bloomed because she loved Mr. Aaron with all her heart. When she ran her hand over the wounded area, a mark would appear on her chest. She had seen one like it on Emma's, it was a healer's crest. The pain was gone in a flash of eye. After that she wounded herself, to test it, and was able to heal the wound again. The protagonist said that if she told the fairy family about it, they would use her, so she kept silent the whole time. The girl said that she would definitely heal it. Aaron hugged the girl and asked if she knew exactly how to heal. He asked if she knew to make physical contact. Layla said that of course she knew that, that's why she told him about it. The guy put her on the bed and asked if she minded. He said he realized he was forcing her to go that far, but he gave his word that he would be gentle. That night they were very close. And from that day on it happened many more times. However, the protagonist realized that it was not for love, but for healing. She thought that even if it wasn't that, it was simple sympathy. So she did her best to help the guy. Aaron was leaving to see His Majesty and had to return by nightfall. At that moment, the protagonist asked him to buy flower seeds. The guy was surprised and the protagonist explained to him that they didn't grow in the garden, so if she could she would like to plant them. Aaron said that he didn't need the flowers here, but now he has her. Aaron said he would look for them. Afterwards he ordered the maid to contact the gardener. He left and told the girl to take care of herself. The main character was taking down the curtains, at which point the maid told her she didn't need to do something like that. But Layla said that she wanted the mansion to be a bright and comfortable place for Mr. Aaron, and now it was too dark. The protagonist said that was why she had decided to change the curtains. She said that this color was soothing, but made even sunlight seem dark. Ada said that's right because the landlord doesn't care about the decoration. The maid said she understood and offered to change the curtains throughout the house to Layla's taste. The protagonist asked if that made the guy bitter. Well, the maid said that she had already warned the owner, so the girl had nothing to worry about. She said she would have to order the curtains right away. Layla thanked her. The maid said not to and said she thought the gardener should be here soon. She asked permission to get directions. The protagonist said that she could help with the garden work too. The maid was surprised and asked what she was talking about, because this work is not for the mistress. The protagonist is in paradise here. When the gardeners arrived, Layla told them to trim the trees so that no branches would stick out and if possible, so that the shadows would not fall on the mansion. They would remove the weeds together. The main character said that she would like the place to be as bright as a meadow. The maid was surprised and said it was her job to remove the weeds. The gardener said they would do it if the girl ordered them to. Layla said she would be uncomfortable just watching them work. She asked if they couldn't do it at all. Later, when Aaron arrived home, the maid told him that they had stopped Layla, but she insisted on doing it anyway. She ended up making friends with the gardeners. Ada told him that the girl had said she wanted to make the mansion bright and comfortable for the guy. The maid told Aaron that she hoped he wasn't mad, but the guy said that he wouldn't get mad about something like that. When the guy came out to the girl, the protagonist apologized for not meeting him. At this point he took her by the head and told her that she may no longer do what she did on her stay at the ferry house. He said that was why he had invited her here. Layla was surprised at those words. She told the guy that she wanted him to look at the flowers. She said she would be sure to grow the flowers so that he would like them. Aaron agreed and said that in that case he would weave a wreath. The protagonist couldn't believe that he still remembered what had happened so long ago. Aaron told the protagonist that the seeds were already prepared and would be delivered soon, and asked her to leave the rest to the gardeners and go change. The mansion is getting lighter little by little. The protagonist hoped that Aaron would find the place bright and comfortable. The maid told the girl that Aaron had been smiling more since she had arrived here. She said that before she could often see his gloomy expression in the dark room, but now it had softened. The maid said that the guy often looked at the main character with affection. Layla thought that if these were Ada's words, and could be trusted. The girl wanted to repay the guy in any way she could, for saving her. The maid also said that the servants and gardeners had become more cheerful after her arrival. And of course she was happy to serve the protagonist, but she said that she was also very happy to have the maid by her side. Ada told the girl that Aaron had a hard character, but she asked the girl not to leave him. The protagonist reassured the maid and said that she will be with him as long as Aaron himself is okay with that. This is all because that's what makes her happy. The day of the marriage ceremony finally arrived. The protagonist asked the guy if it was okay that he didn't invite any guests. Aaron reassured the girl and said that everything was fine, apparently there was no one to invite. He explained that with the curse he had become distant from his surroundings. Now only people from the house are with him. The protagonist felt sad and wondered if that was why the mansion was so lonely. At that moment she took the guy's hand and told him he had her. She said she would be with him always, which she swore to God. Aaron offered to start the ceremony. He said it would bring them together. The priest asked the guy if he swears to be by her side in sickness and in health. Aaron replied that he did. The priest asked the girl the same question and she replied that she did. Here the divine protection descended, a blessing for the happy future of these two. The boy took the girl in his arms. He told the maid that he would leave the rest to her and ordered her to release the men before morning. Later, the guy put the protagonist on the bed. He said that she is so beautiful that it feels like he can't control you. He said she was only his now. But Layla thought she shouldn't make the mistake of thinking the guy was referring to her gift. She wished she could really be his in every way. Aaron asked if she minded even though the sun was still so high. The protagonist covered her face with her hand and said it was embarrassing. She said that when she is embarrassed, she is still as lovely. So they became husband and wife. The protagonist thought that even though it was true that this marriage was based on sympathy, but she was happy. This was the second battlefield. The enemy was the southern neighboring country of Dussa. She was targeting the fertile land of that country, Kayla. The king was still young, only a few years younger than Aaron, and that was what they wanted to take advantage of. The nickname Monster, related to the guy's cruelty, appeared at that time. However, due to subsequent events, Monster took on a different meaning. The king was fighting and suddenly the unknown guy started saying that he would curse him. Aaron defended the king and asked how dare he put curses on the king. The unknown man said that then the curses would stay on Aaron instead. Aaron killed the guy and said he would pay for it with his life. The curse was terrifyingly strong. The guy felt the curse run through his entire body, taking over his consciousness. The king started to slowly walk up to the guy and asked if he was all right, but Aaron shouted at him to stay away from him and ran away. Aaron grabbed the last signs of reason and distanced himself from the king. It was all he could do. He then proceeded to kill without seeing who was his own and who was someone else's. Afterwards, he was rewarded for protecting the king by putting himself under a curse. But behind the scenes, he killed so many allies that the monster was widely recognized. And there was no one beside him. Aaron woke up and realized it was just a dream. But he didn't care that everyone was gone. He only wanted to make Layla happy. Aaron was working in his study. At that moment the maid brought him coffee and told him that he had changed since Layla had been here. The maid said she had never seen him smile before. The guy thought there was no point in denying it. Aaron thought maybe he really had changed. That was when he met Layla for the first time. The sight of her was unpleasant, but her violet eyes shone like jewels. With her lovely voice like a tinkling bell, she was like a flower fairy. Aaron could easily surmise that she was having a hard time in the fairy family. Her younger sister Emma, who had the gift of healing, wore better quality dresses, while Layla wore maid's robes. The boy realized that she did not seem to have healing powers. He begged the fairy family for healing, despising it himself. Layla was not intimidated by his mask, and even listened to his stories. The complete opposite of Emma, who rejected him every time she saw him. But the guy thought that attitude was more than justified. He's rejected by everyone. Spending time with Layla made his heart feel lighter. It didn't take long for him to start coming to the fairy house, not for healing, but to see Layla. The boy thought that it could be said that his heart was healed with her. He felt that he was not alone, though he's not the kind of man to think that. He thought it seemed as if fate was mocking him. After all, what was happening was this. The guy remembered a girl getting hurt and he attacked her. The scattered flowers and the blood flowing from her reminded him of the battlefield. Curses in action. The curse took hold of him, and of all people he saw the enemy in Layla, and tried to kill her. He losing control of himself, he didn't stop until time ran out. Layla's death was only a matter of time. It was agonizing. The boy wanted to stop the curse. Wanted to do something to save Layla, but his body wouldn't listen. He had lost hope. It was very hard. He felt sorry, he didn't want to kill the girl. That's when the miracle happened. His curse subsided. It couldn't end with an apology. He thought about making it up to the girl. The guy was surprised that the protagonist was smiling steadfastly despite having been through such a thing. He realized that he liked her, but he realized for himself that he had fallen in love with her long before that. He just didn't want to admit his feelings because of the curse. Aaron wanted to make her happy. Apologizing, he promised himself he would. To the fairy family, the king put forward the order to heal Aaron repeatedly. But Emma's unequivocal refusal gave the boy no reason to visit their home. That's when he decided to get Layla out of there. He was sure falling in love with someone like him was a burden, but he swore to himself that he would make Layla happy at least. Aaron didn't know that Layla had a gift for healing, but she was still the daughter of the count, and he wouldn't let her out of the house so easily. So he decided to save her by choosing a form of marriage, with the Marquis getting permission from the count for his daughter's hand in marriage. There were no major problems. The only thing is her special bloodline. There are many aristocrats who desire the blood of a man with a gift, so Aaron consulted with the king from time to time, laying the groundwork, as much as he wanted to protect her. And eventually he was able to get Layla. He thought it must have been a real shame for her to marry someone like him. Someone who was known as a monster. But he loved the girl and he wanted to make her happy. And he thought he was going to make her happy for the rest of his life. For that, he'd devote his life to her. While everyone else was away, she was the only one trying to keep the house lit. Her kindness charmed the boy. He thought she might not love him. He would continue to love her as a friend. That's why he made her his wife. The maid was surprised that she had just laughed. She asked if that laughter was from happiness at the thought of Layla. That made the maid happy. Happy days continued after the marriage. The weather was quite clear that day, so Layla suggested having tea on the terrace. The protagonist apologized to her boyfriend for acting like a child, but she said that the weather was so beautiful today. Aaron told her that she didn't need to apologize. After all, he could understand her. At that moment a strong wind blew. The boy looked at the girl's attire and wondered what had crossed his mind. He thought it was the color of the flag of an enemy country. He wondered if it was a battlefield. The thought of not killing the enemy ran through his mind. Aaron tried to suppress the impulse so that the curse wouldn't take effect. He thought that if he didn't stop, he would try to kill Layla again. At that moment he stood up and grabbed the girl. Unable to stop himself, he became desperate. The protagonist begged him to come to his senses. The maids were watching and the guy thought they should be killed too. But the main character first. At that moment, the main character dropped her hands. Aaron was surprised that she had a face like she was resigned to being killed. The guy mentally apologized to Layla. He hadn't invited her to the mansion to do that. Then Layla's gift took effect. The curse was suppressed by that power. The guy blamed himself for trying to kill her a second time. He thought a cursed man like him couldn't even say a word about loving her. He didn't know if he could make her happy. He didn't realize he didn't even have the right to do that. But the protagonist hugged the guy and said it must have been painful for him. She said he always had that anguished face in the middle of a curse. Aaron was glad Layla understood him. He told her he wanted to protect her. That said, the protagonist stopped him and told him that her healing powers weren't enough. It's because she doesn't have enough of her own power. But the guy says that's not true at all. Layla's healing gift is very strong. He got rid of the guy's curse day after day. But the curse is strong, too. The source of the curse has not been dealt with as he would have liked, and it didn't occur to Aaron that such a thing tormented Layla. He took off the mask and said she was doing well. And told her to look at her face. The curse was much lessened. Layla cried. Aaron thought that it was not otherwise that Layla was afraid of him too. He thought that nothing good would come out of this marriage after all. The protagonist told him she was glad she was helping him. He was surprised at how kind she was. The protagonist said that she would try harder and do her best to break his curse. So she asked him to keep her by his side. Aaron hugged the girl and said that if that was her own wish. He thought that even if it's pity, so be it. Even if she just doesn't want to go back to the ferry house, so be it. Just let her be there for him. He didn't want to leave her. At night the boy went out on the balcony and looked at the stars. He didn't know what to do now. He wanted to confess that he loved her, but the curse stopped him. He thought if he told her something like that it would cause trouble. Aaron thought there was nothing left to do but wait for the full healing. It's dissipating day by day and the guy's body is getting lighter and lighter, as if he's slowly being untied. The powers were real, but Aaron didn't know when the day would come for the curse to be lifted, or rather if it was even possible to break it completely. The boy began to pray to the gods to give him the power to give Layla happiness. Aaron was working in his office and the maid apologized for distracting him from his work. She said that it was apparently a secret letter from the king's messenger. After she gave it to the boy, he said she could go. His Majesty had disbanded all the secret agents from the Dussa. The letter said that news of Aaron's marriage to Layla had spread to the Dussa. The boy realized that this made Layla a target for the Dussa. The maid that guy killed was one of the best in their country. It was originally thought that the curses, due to which he would consider anyone as his enemy, would eventually lead to his death. But the guy survived thanks to Layla, and got an increase in combat abilities, but also a loss of sanity. He swings his sword without distinguishing between enemies and allies. For Dussa, that calculation proved painful. In that battle the lad also killed several enemy generals, some of whom had Dussa's royal blood in them. Now it was in the interest of the state to kill him before they met on the battlefield. His Majesty warned the lad to be as vigilant as possible. Aaron thought that if anything happened to Layla, he wouldn't be able to live. He decided that he should bring the maid up to speed and be on full alert. At that moment the maid came into the room and said that something had happened. She said that luggage had been delivered from Mrs. Layla's home. The boy asked if this was a hostile outburst, because it didn't sound credible. The maid said she'd heard about it from the guy's stories too, so she thought about it. That's when the guy realized that maybe Layla was going to be killed. He started running towards her. It was hard for him to imagine that they would use the weak side of the enemy and in such a way, but the probability is not equal. The guy just didn't want to lose Layla, who was dear to him. The protagonist was working in the garden. That's when Aaron came to her. He told her that he was leaving for His Majesty the King. The protagonist smiled and asked him to take care of himself. At that moment, the guy took off his mask and asked Layla to look at it. The protagonist noticed that the stain was getting paler and paler. Aaron asked, still his eyes did not deceive him, and it was going away. The protagonist was very happy. She asked if it was useful to the guy after all. The guy agreed and said that since she arrived he felt lightness in his body. And it's all thanks to the girl. The guy told the girl that he was only telling her. At that moment he said he had to go. Finally, the main character wished him a good day. The girl was glad that even someone like her could help. However, the problem is that the curse lurks in her heart. The stain is only a part of it. The curse itself sits deep in the heart. The protagonist thought that still if one day she could remove the curse from Aaron completely, if it happened perhaps that feeling of pity for her would be replaced by something else, though she found that hard to imagine. Layla realized that if she succeeded in breaking the curse, pity would be replaced by gratitude. After all, if love and affection were to appear, it should have happened a long time ago. The girl thought that this love would always be unrequited. It would end, and they would remain true spouses. The protagonist realized that there might be a girl whose healing gift would be stronger than hers. And a decision would be made to dissolve the marriage. Layla was sure that her abilities were at a high level. She could say she was definitely stronger than Emma. However, there are some people who, like her, have had the gift of healing awakened suddenly, and Layla couldn't claim they would be any less powerful. And perhaps it would not be the gradual healing that the protagonist exerts, but an instantaneous one that reaches all the way to the heart. The protagonist was sure that Aaron was in search of it. Layla thought that the best thing that could happen would be to break Mr. Aaron's curse. But she didn't understand why she was in so much pain. The protagonist decided that she would not think about it now. It happened a few days later. A maid came to the protagonist and asked her to leave for a moment. She said that there was something to do for her. Layla was surprised that she was actually being addressed. The maid apologized for interrupting the girl from tending the garden. Layla said it was no big deal and asked what the business was. The maid explained that a luggage had come for the girl from her home. When she saw the parcel, she thought that there was no mistake, it was definitely from there, but she thought that it seemed as if the handwriting was not the same as her father's, and the fact that they sent the parcel to her. The maid offered to dispose of the parcel. The main character said she wanted to see what was in it. After all, she was used to family. The maid asked what if it made her feel uncomfortable. Layla smilingly said it was fine. At that moment, Aaron came running in. The protagonist told him that some luggage had come to her from home. She said that it might be a present for a guy. At that moment Aaron said that he would open it because there was a possibility of the worst. Layla tried to calm the guy down and said something about that family also being her responsibility. She asked for permission to open it for her. The protagonist understood the guy's tension. She was treated like a burden in the ferry house. If they were going to do anything for her now, Layla could only think of a hostile outburst. But be that as it may, it's the girl's home there and responsibility must be borne. The protagonist opened the parcel. There lay the exact same mask as Aaron's. She didn't know if it was Emma's idea or the brothers', either way it was a mockery. Even if Aaron has no choice but to wear that mask. Layla couldn't find the words to apologize for it to the boy. She was sure it was her mum's or her brother's doing. The girl thought it was her responsibility to get rid of it. But at that moment, Aaron told her it was best not to touch the mask. He explained that it was impossible to say for sure that it was sent by the Ferry family. The boy explained that it was possible that this parcel was from his enemy. He said it could be from the enemy country of Dusa. The protagonist was surprised. She didn't understand how they could think of such a thing. She asked the guy if he was sure he wasn't deluding himself, but the guy said he wasn't. At that point the maid asked if she should get rid of it and the guy said yes. Layla asked the guy to stop and asked what if it was a parcel from the ferry house after all. Aaron said that if it was, he all the more wanted to destroy it. He told the girl that she was now a member of Stanley's family. The protagonist was surprised. She didn't realize what she expected from the ferry family. The girl assumed that she still craved love from this family. But she realized that was not the case. She wanted to convey to the ferry family that she was happy. Layla stopped the maid and told her to wait. At that moment, the mask fell out of the box. The protagonist bent down to pick up the mask and said that she would send this parcel back to the ferry family. The maid told the girl that she was wrong. The protagonist said that the ferry family must make amends with Mr. Aaron. At that moment the guy pushed the girl away from the mask but accidentally touched her himself. The protagonist asked what was going on, but the guy shouted at her not to come closer and explained that the mask was cursed. The protagonist asked if the family would send such a thing, but the maid explained to the girl that for some period of time Aaron had been receiving things, and something strange was not with good intentions. From the enemy side of the Dusser. The maid explained that the guy had kept quiet about it because he didn't want to create a cause for concern. Apparently, the Dus got wind of Lila's weakness and decided to exploit it. The protagonist asked the guy to take his hand off the mask. But the guy explained that he couldn't because she was clinging to him. He asked her to leave or it could be bad. But Layla said she couldn't leave. The protagonist realized that the guy was allowing the fact that his curse would worsen by taking care of her, so she thought she should help him. Aaron told the girl he didn't want to kill her, but the protagonist told him she wasn't going to watch him suffer anymore. Layla thought she was going to save the guy. That's when the girl's gift manifested itself. Aaron was finally able to let go of the mask and calm down. He asked the girl if she was okay. Layla said she was perfectly fine. Aaron praised the gods. He said he couldn't forgive himself if the curse got to someone he loved. Those words pleasantly surprised the girl. The guy hugged her and said he was really glad she wasn't touched by it. The protagonist had always thought it was about pity. Thought that the feelings the guy had for her from a long time ago were just her. She thought he was being nice to her, unattractive and without a healing gift, because of pity. To then also, if possible, to get the favor of Emma, who has this gift. The girl had always believed it without a doubt. She thought even the marriage had been organized because he was sorry to see Layla oppressed in the ferry house. Or that if he could join the family, the chance of healing would be raised. Such a reason could have existed as well. That's why Layla kept thinking there could be no love. But that warmth in her chest, a warmth that Layla dreamed of. She thought she might be missing something important. At that moment, the protagonist asked if she could ask something. She asked if the guy married her out of pity. Aaron smiled and said that he had always loved the girl. But he said that the love of someone like him, nicknamed Monster, would only be unpleasant for her and asked if that was not true. The protagonist cried and said that she did not understand what unpleasantness could be talked about. She said that she would always love him. Aaron was surprised and asked if that was true even though he was cursed. The protagonist said that since she was a little girl she had only longed for boys. Layla smiled and asked if he had been caring for her all along. At that moment Aaron said that he too would speak out. He hugged the girl and said he loved her. No one, and nothing, like her. At this point they kissed. The protagonist realized that the guy always kissed her with love. She didn't believe in that warmth because she thought it was meant for healing. Layla didn't realize if she could be so happy. The girl realized that she seemed to be losing her head. At that moment the guy said that the sun was still high, but he wanted the girl. Layla covered her face with her hand saying the guy is embarrassing me. At this point the arena said to the girl regarding the way she addresses him. He said he was already officially her husband, and asked if she could just call him Aaron. The protagonist smiled and said she would. They finally entered into a marriage in which the couple expressed their feelings. Not just for the sake of healing. They spent night after night in each other's loving and passionate embrace. A flower blooms when it is loved and loves itself. The protagonist became a flower in full bloom. Some time later, the protagonist picked some flowers. She called Aaron and he looked out of the window. The girl told him that the flowers had grown so beautiful. And he agreed, but said the main character was much prettier. Aaron said that long ago it was the day she started picking flowers for him. Layla explained that it was because she couldn't do anything else for him. The guy said that's probably when he liked her too. The protagonist said the guy is conniving, constantly making her heart flutter. But Aaron said he could say the same thing. At this point, the maid leaned out of the window and asked them to stop there, otherwise they might have missed the tea and biscuits. The main character apologized to the maid and said that she would not refuse tea and biscuits. The maid told the bloke that the girl had gone straight to light. And he agreed with that. The maid told the lad to do his best for tea with Layla too. Later at the table, Aaron told the girl that an invitation had arrived for an evening at His Majesty the King's house. Aaron told her that the celebration would be in honor of 15 years since the king had ascended the throne. Layla was surprised that Aaron had been invited by His Majesty the King himself to such a celebration. She told the boy that it was hard to imagine how great a man Aaron was. The lad said that he had protected the king from the curse on the battlefield, the reason for that alone. But he said that still, that's the only pride he has. Layla didn't realize if that was true. After all, he defended His Majesty and was cursed in his place. And was also dubbed a monster. According to Emma, he's a terrible and cruel monster. But the protagonist thought she was a kind person, and the only thing is that he will not spare anyone for the sake of protecting what he holds dear. Nobody knows his kind. You don't know about him suffering. Layla was ready to be the one on his side, for she wanted to be with him always. At that moment he told the girl that he would like to attend the evening as her chaperone. The protagonist was surprised and asked if it would be a burden to go along with someone like her, but at that moment the guy took off his mask. The protagonist was surprised and cried with happiness. Aaron put the mask back on and said that he wanted to show the fortune to His Majesty. He asked if the girl would go with him and the protagonist gladly agreed. Aaron explained to her that there might be some trouble at the party. After all, he had heard that the Count Fairy's family was also planning to attend. But Layla said it didn't matter because she was now a member of the Stanley family. Such words warmed the lad's soul. At that moment the maid asked if she could clear the table and bring tea. The boy stood up with the girl and said they didn't need tea. He said he wanted to be alone with the girl sooner. Aaron took the protagonist in his arms and said that tonight would be a long night. Layla replied to him that if I am with him then she agrees. That night was filled with happiness. On the day of the celebration, the protagonist put on a dress. She asked the maid if she would look strange standing next to Aaron. But the maid reassured the girl and said that she was beautiful. She said it was a pleasure to make this dress. The maid said that all that was left was to finish her hair. She asked about hair jewelry. Layla said she would trust her. Brushing the girl's hair, the maid started a conversation. She said that remembering the day Layla first came to this house, she was like a wounded bird. However, now she had gained beautiful wings and could fly. After that the maid finished with her hair and told the girl to be confident. She said that now the girl was ready, all she had to do was to wait for Aaron. At that moment a guy entered the room. He was surprised at the beauty of the girl. The protagonist asked if something was wrong. But he smiled and said that she was more beautiful than he had imagined, so he was surprised. At that moment, Aaron said again that tonight might be difficult for Layla. Aaron asked if she would agree to appear there with him as Layla Stanley. The protagonist confidently said that she should convey to the Ferry family members that she is happy. Aaron smiled a little and told her to keep it up. Before leaving, he told the maid that they were traveling to the royal palace and asked her to prepare the carriage. Aaron told the protagonist that he would be guarding her. The royal palace. The unknown man said that if anything happened to him, he would like to call on Emma's miraculous powers. The main heroine's father said that it goes without saying and the man could call upon it as needed. At this point Emma told her father that she had no desire to use her healer powers on such unattractive men. The father told the girl that she was speaking too loudly. He said that no one is asking her to spend the night with them. Dallaire said that's right, he said they should be grateful and on what they touch them too. Emma said that even if they did, she still felt bad about it. She thought her power was sacred. At that point Toby said that there was something more interesting than that today. Emma remembered that today they would see their sister Layla. She said she heard that the main character was coming with that Marquis monster. Emma couldn't wait to see that pathetic picture for her. Dallaire said that it seemed that this Marquis himself rarely attended such events. Toby replied to his brother that that was a given, since he was cursed. Toby asked what would happen if his curse was activated at the reception. Emma said that it's scary. She said it was really good that she cut off contact with him. At this point, Dad told the kids that even though he was a monster he was a marquis and asked them to keep his status in mind. Mum got angry and asked Dad if he really meant to say that she would have been better off marrying him. She asked if he still thought it would be better if she spent the night with him. Emma asked if that wasn't glorious. She said that because of the marriage the worthless Layla, they County Ferry, now has the backing of the Marquis Stanley's family. And should enjoy only his status. Dallaire said he agreed. He was disgusted to think of the harm he could do to their family over a simple curse. At that point, Toby said he was still not happy that Layla married that masked monster. At that point Emma asked if he really is also Layla. The girl said that he seems to have bad taste in girls. Dallaire said he agreed. It never even crossed his mind to even touch this unattractive girl. Toby got angry and said that the two of them would never understand Layla's attraction. Dallaire said he wouldn't say anything about the woman's charms. Emma agreed and said that besides, if the guy got a good 5 looks the guy would see even more ugliness and come round. Dallaire agreed with his sister's words. He said that, for example, her attendance at the king's reception told that monster that Layla didn't realize her position. That he disagreed with them. He thought Layla was not a polished gem that would shine even brighter than the same Emma if polished. He agreed that she didn't have the power of a healer, but there was nothing to criticize for her feminine side. He thought that if Aaron hadn't turned up she would have been his mistress. At that moment a servant announced that the Marquis and the Marquis Stanley had arrived. But when everyone saw the beauty of the protagonist they were surprised. Aaron apologized for interrupting their pleasant conversation and asked them to continue chatting. Everyone thought they were a beautiful couple. Toby thought that his eye was not bad after all, but he thought Aaron was a bastard because Toby wanted to get Layla. Emma was very surprised. Dallaire couldn't believe it was the same unassuming Layla. At that moment Emma asked the brothers to stop and said that even though Layla had cleaned up her appearance a little, she didn't have a gift. At that moment Emma heard two men talking. The first said that she may not have the ability, being so beautiful. The other man agreed and asked if it shouldn't be enough for a lord to have such a wife. Emma was very angry. She wanted everyone to open their eyes. Their value with Layla is different. He wondered if everyone didn't realize that Layla was worthless. Emma thought she had special blood running through her and she wanted that not to be forgotten. At this point, the first man said it couldn't be ignored that Emma's gift was beautiful. The other man said that it was certain that her healing gift was nationally known. He asked how it could be forgotten. Layla was concerned. But Aaron said it's okay because he's used to it. He said more importantly, first things first. At this point the king said it was good that they had come. He said he owed it to Aaron, so he hoped they would enjoy tonight. Oren said we were grateful for such flattering words. The protagonist congratulated His Majesty on his 15th year on the throne. She wished you and the boy good health and prosperity in his country. She said it was an honor to personally convey congratulations at this festive banquet. The king presented and told Aaron that his consort is beautiful. Aaron smiled and said that she was so beautiful that he didn't deserve her. But at that moment he said that first of all he wanted to ask something. Aaron asked the king if he would do him the honor of looking at his face. At that moment he took off his mask and his face was completely clean. All the people were surprised that the stain was gone. They couldn't believe it because as far as they knew the curse was very strong. Emma couldn't believe it. She thought there was no way the guy could get rid of that stain. I mean, even she couldn't get rid of it. Emma realized there were few people more gifted than her. Dallaire agreed with her sister and said that he was sure that the average healer couldn't have dealt with something like that. Emma was angry and asked if he meant to say that she was an ordinary healer. But the guy said no. He said that the girl's abilities as a healer were not weak in any way. That's why His Majesty sent the Marquis to the Ferry family. Emma rejoiced and said it was wonderful that he realized that. Obe asked his brother if this meant that there was someone stronger than Emma. Dallaire said that it was hard to believe, but it seemed to be true. He said it was hard for him to imagine something like that being leaked after all. He said that Aaron must have misled everyone somehow. At this point, Aaron told the king that the curse wasn't completely gone. But it's gone to such an extent. And it's all thanks to his wife. The king said that this was his first meeting with the girl and asked her to introduce herself. The protagonist bowed her head again and said her name. She said that she had a healing gift and she wanted to use her ability only for her husband Aaron. The king was surprised and asked again. The protagonist said he could see the healer's crest on her body. All the people were surprised that the protagonist had a healer's emblem and also such a big one. Emma screamed that it was a lie. She said their sister didn't possess anything, much less the gift of healing. Dallaire couldn't believe it either. He thought Layla was good for nothing, had no ability whatsoever. At that moment Toby said that it was rare, but there were gifted people who didn't get the gift right away. Emma asked her brother if he thought Layla was one of those. The protagonist's father was very surprised. He realized that in that case, if Layla had a healing gift, he could have chosen any family to marry into. A duke, or even someone from the royal family. Emma told her father that she too has a healing gift and is a pillar of strength for the family. She asked him if she was enough, if he didn't have to rely on Layla. But Dallaire told her sister that Layla was stronger than her. He said that the brightness of this sign is his magnitude and that it's stronger than Emma's. Emma said it's still better than no gift at all. Dallaire said it is, but he said Emma only brags about her gift but has never used it on anyone. Mum said there's a power that's sacred and she's not going to use it on anyone. Dallaire asked if not using the ability wasn't the same as not having it. Mum started shouting at him to shut up. She said that their powers were nothing compared to hers. Dallaire said that meant Layla was a suitable pawn. Toby said that they were her brothers and Layla's brothers were unlikely to be skewered by her. Dallaire called Layla pathetic and said he's sure her heart is still very good. He said it would be easier here than with Emma and her pridefulness. The king told Aaron that he had found a good partner. He said he hoped at this rate the curse would be broken completely. Aaron said he thought it would take a long time. After all, the taint is gone, but still the curse sits deep in his heart. The king said he was still sorry about what happened and his help was the least he could do. The king wished them fun tonight and asked the main character to take care of Aaron. People were surprised that Marquis Stanley would marry such a beautiful woman. At that moment a man approached the girl and said that he was an old mate of Marquis Stanley. He asked why they shouldn't come to visit him sometime. The protagonist thought that if this was true, he was one of the men who had once left Aaron. The other man told the girl that his father was very weak and he would certainly like the girl to watch him. But at this point Aaron said that they would refuse them. He said he didn't remember them being, as they put it, mates. The girls started approaching Aaron and said that they were always thinking about his health. The girls asked if the guy and his wife would like to have tea with them sometime. Aaron said that his curse had not been lifted yet. And said he would listen to them when it was fully lifted. At this point Emma came up and told the lad that she was very sorry for the past. That she had shunned him long ago and refused to treat him. She said she was more confident in her gift of healing than Layla was. Emma asked why they shouldn't start over. There would be no regrets. We saw about the guy that hers seemed stronger than Layla's. Emma remembered that Marquis kept coming to the mansion asking to be healed. She thought that if he finally agreed he would definitely come over to her side. That's when he said she was wrong about something. He said he had fallen in love with Layla and that was the end of it. He said there would be no fresh start. Emma was angry. She didn't know that underneath the mask was such a handsome young man. The girl thought that if only the curse was broken, then just that appearance alone would be more than enough to match her. She thought that Layla didn't deserve a guy like that. She decided to give it another try, and if she tried one more time, the Duke would surely appreciate her. At that moment Aaron approached the protagonist's father. He said that he came to thank him. He said that he was really glad that he was able to take Layla as his wife. Layla told her father that she was more than happy now and thanked him. Dallaire said that he had always thought the girl was beautiful. Toby added that it was worth noting that with a good patron, Layla had become even more beautiful. At that point, Toby said that they had something marvelous to tell the girl. He said that the healing gift becomes more with her when a couple of people with abilities spend the night together. Dallaire asked what she would say to that. He asked if she wanted to spend the night with them. He said he wouldn't be doing her a favor if she paid them. Toby said all she has to do is pay them a little and spend the night with them and then she can treat Marquis even better. Toby said they had lovingly raised her. He asked if she'd say no to him. Layla didn't understand why they were suddenly talking about such things. And his emphasizing the enhancement of the healing gift. The protagonist wanted to cure Aaron completely. She didn't understand how she could spend the night with her three brothers. At this point, Aaron hugged the girl and told her she was his, and he would not let anyone touch her. At that moment, Emma ran over and grabbed hold of the girl. The protagonist almost fell down, but Aaron grabbed her and helped her stand. Emma walked up to the guy and told him that he had never seen her healing gift. She said that Layla was a match for her gift, but Aaron just laughed and said it was a good thing he hadn't used her then. He said she wouldn't have been able to heal him to the state he's in now. And Emma told Layla that she'd never been able to do it and was lying to them. At this point the guy asked if they had checked that she couldn't use the healing gift. The girl's father said none of them had checked, so they had. Dallaire interrupted the father and said that yes, they can't believe it. Toby said it was all a farce and asked if they had proof. The main character said that of course it was her fault for keeping quiet. Aaron said there can be no doubt about the gift of aiming. He asked if they wanted the girl to show the healing sign again. Dallaire replied that the mark could be forged. At that point Toby picked up a knife and stabbed his finger. He told the protagonist to try to heal it. Layla could have done it right away. But she didn't know if she should show them her powers now. She didn't know if it wouldn't hurt Aaron somehow. Aaron smiled at the girl and said that she would heal such a cut right away. The protagonist was very happy that he understood her. At that moment, she healed her finger without leaving a scar. The protagonist's father realized that it was just a small cut, but still, the girl only had to swipe it and it disappeared without leaving a scar. Aaron thanked Count Ferry. He said that now he had to go. Lastly, the protagonist thanked me for being raised this way. She said that now she will live happily with Aaron. When the protagonist and her husband were leaving, people apologized to Aaron and wanted to use the girl's healing power. Aaron didn't realize that they had already forgotten everything that had happened before. The protagonist said it seemed wonderful that everyone realized how good he was. The guy said it was enough that she realized that. Toby thought that a woman like that couldn't be given to that monster. Emma didn't understand how she could give up a man like that for her big sister. Her brothers had suddenly started complimenting her and making Emma look inept. Her father kept wishing he'd sold her sister for more. Emma didn't realize that everyone had forgotten that they had someone with such an amazing gift. Emma thought she needed to get her sister back to the sorry state she was in before. Emma approached the men and the men asked what she wanted, if it was words to sell them her services. But Emma asked if they wanted money. She said she wanted them to help her. It's very simple. All we have to do is embarrass one woman. They said they were open to her suggestions. A while later, Aaron was tearing up the letters. The maid asked the Ferry family never stop causing trouble, did they? Aaron said they had enough strength to send a new letter every day. The content is always the same, after letting them use Layla's healing gift. The maid said it's hard to say what they hope for. She said that if they just wanted help, they might be able to negotiate with Layla. But the point is, her half-brothers are interested in her body. If two people with a magical gift spend the night together, their powers are enhanced. He realized they were trying to use that fact to get her into bed and do whatever they wanted with her. The maid said they couldn't tell Layla about it. Aaron agreed with her and told her not to show the letters to the girl but to bring them to him straight away. The boy didn't understand how, despite everything they had done to her since she was a child, they had the nerve to act like nothing had happened. There was no way he was going to let anything like that happen. The boy wanted Layla all to himself. Aaron realized that his lust for Layla had grown stronger. He told the maid that the protagonist was a healer of the highest caliber. Some wounds she could heal just by holding her hand over them. He said that if there were any requests, that would be enough. At this point the woman said she had something she wanted to say. She said that Layla, if she was not mistaken, had a younger sister. I had no letters from her. Aaron thought about it and realized that indeed, she was so hurt, but she doesn't do anything about it. Or does something different regardless of her brothers. He told the maid that he had a task for her. He ordered to find out the identity of those who were at that reception at the royal palace. After that, about 1 month had passed since that reception at the royal palace. Aaron told the protagonist that he would just have a little talk with His Majesty's advisor and come back right away. The guy kissed the girl on the forehead and said that they would continue in the evening. Layla noticed that after the reception at the royal palace, she and Aaron were being watched closely. She hoped the boy would be all right. A few hours after Aaron left, an unknown man came into the house. Layla noticed he was talking to the maid and approached. The guy said that Marquis Stanley had fallen in the royal palace. He asked the protagonist if she was the Marquis Stanley wrong. He said he witnessed the incident at the royal palace. The guy said that the situation needed a rush, so he came to report it. The protagonist thanked him. When asked if he was okay, the guy nodded his head that he was not. He grabbed the girl's hand and said that she should go with him to the royal palace anyway and she could use the healing gift. Layla said she understood and said she would go right away, but asked if he could let go of her hand first. The guy said no, because every second counts and they have to hurry. The protagonist understood. She wanted to get there as fast as possible. But she knew something was wrong. At that moment the guy apologized for being rude and let go of her hand. He said there was no need to hurry. The maid said or that there was no way Mr. N could have fallen. She said it must be some misunderstanding. At this point the bloke said he was there when it happened. And there's not an ounce of foul play here. The protagonist knew they were being watched closely from that reception. She wouldn't be surprised if it turned into something bad. She thought she had to be prepared for anything. Layla told the maid that if Aaron's curse activated, only she could stop it. So she must go. While she's gone, she's instructed the maid to keep an eye on the house. The guy thanked the girl for her discretion and said that his carriage is right there. When the protagonist saw the carriage, she didn't realize if it was a carriage from the royal palace. The guy asked the girl to hurry up. At that moment Layla asked if it was the carriage from the royal palace. The guy said it was. He explained that he was in a hurry so he couldn't take the carriage with the royal emblem. He said he'd borrowed the carriage from the stable boys at the royal palace. And there shouldn't be a problem. As the protagonist drove along, she realized it was strange. She realized that this is not the road that leads to the royal palace. On the contrary, they are traveling deep into the capital of the kingdom. She apologized and asked how far it was to the royal palace. The girl had a bad feeling. When they arrived, the guy told the girl to get out faster. Layla didn't realize what this place was. The guy told her to go inside. The protagonist said that he told her that Aaron was in the royal palace. She asked why they came here. At this point he hit the girl and told her to shut up. He said that if she was told to come in, then come in. The girl asked him to stop. She was hoping someone would help her. The guy told the other men he'd brought the Marquis' wife. And she had a healing gift. He asked which one of them had injuries. Another man said it was an honor to be healed by a noble lady. One man said he had a stomachache. And the other said she needed to see what was wrong with his arm first. Layla realized she had been tricked and didn't know what to do or how to be. The guy showed his hand and told the girl to heal it. After that they marveled at the healing gift. The other man said it could be sold for a lot of money. And asked if they should definitely do something with it. The main character didn't know what they were talking about. The guy who brought the girl here said they could do whatever they wanted with her. Only they mustn't forget the conditions. The other man agreed and said sure. After all, it's not every day you get a chance to defile such a beautiful girl. Layla realized she couldn't stay here. She thought she had to get away as soon as possible. At that moment a man grabbed her arm and asked her where she was going because it was rude to run away. The protagonist asked him to let her go. But the man grabbed her and threw her to the ground. He said they really needed her healing, yes. The protagonist screamed that she didn't want it. The guys realized that it looked like she'd never slept with anyone but her husband. They liked the look on her face. The main character didn't want it. At this point, the guy who had his arm healed asked if he could show the girl to that man. The other guy suggested to get rid of the fancy dress first. They decided to have fun with it and then sell it. They thought it would be the most profitable option. That's when Emma came in. She told the protagonist that she saw the girl had fallen very low, said that she had come to see how she would become a toy for these men. Layla asked why. And her sister told her it was because she wasn't worthy of a man like Marquez. Mum said she'd cure the Marquez monster herself. Layla, they'll give it to someone and it'll be just like old times. Mum said it was a shame Erin wouldn't get to see it. But she said it's okay. After all, even 100 years of love would dissipate when he saw the state she was in. Emma laughed in response to Lyle's horrified screams. Emma said the desperate look on her face was adorable. She asked in order for her to apply the healers so need to get laid, doesn't she? She wondered what it would be like to be defiled by another man. One guy asked if it was okay to start already. Mum said of course and told them to develop well. Layla called out to Orin for help. Emma laughed and said she could call all she wanted because the guy wasn't coming. At that point she opened the doors and told them to get their hands off Layla. Mum asked how he found this place. Ayin drew his sword and told them to get their hands off Layla, or they'll get hurt. The guy came up to the main character and asked if she was okay. He apologized for being late. He asked if he was scared. At this point his mum asked how he found the place. Arena pointed his sword at the emu and said that the royal counselor told him that the Sphere family was up to something. He said that the emu was in cahoots with a group of some suspicious aristocrats. At this point, the guy who brought the girl said that he definitely didn't say anything to anyone and did exactly as Emma told him. And he told them that he'd been watching Emma too, because she did everything independent of her brothers. The guy thought she'd take a long time to prepare, but to their surprise, she quickly found accomplices and began to act ahead of Aaron and the royal counselor. The guy had hoped he could put an end to her plan before anything happened to Layla, but she outsmarted him. Aaron says it's extremely annoying. He hates himself for his helplessness. Thought it was good that he was able to quickly establish where she was, but he was still too late. Aaron apologized to Layla for putting her through all this. At this point he turned to his mum and told her to remember that if she ever dared to hurt Layla again she would not live.